Okay, welcome back. I just realized there are a couple of more blueprints we should hit. Um, so someone had posted just an old-fashioned Launchpad blueprint. So just wanted to get people to respond to it. So this is at line 551. Support revert volume to any snapshot. Um, I suppose this is driver dependent in a pretty big way. Um,
Yeah.
but I wanted to get some initial feedback. That
So
will,
when we did revert the snapshot, um, we put the restriction in saying you could only revert to the latest snapshot. And the reason that we did that was because if you support reverting to any snapshot on a volume, instead of having a linear tree or a linear line of snapshots in a sequence, you start forking and having a tree of snapshots um, for that volume. And the implications of doing that are, well, problematic for some backends for sure, probably fine for other backends. Um, and so we really punted on this the first time around just because it's a very hard thing to make sure we were going to be able to accomplish in a sensible way. I guess it's probably about time that we consider whether we still think that's the case or if we want to actually try to do this. It certainly would be a nice thing for end users to have this for backends that can actually do it in some kind of uh, performative or performant way. Um,
Greg, I'm just thinking about this. I'm in the process of writing a revert to snapshot for the pure driver, and I don't see that limitation being forced on me. I can pick any snapshot and revert from it even now. Is this limit you're talking about in the generic revert?
I think it's limited in the API.
That's interesting because I can grab any snapshot and it will just revert. Certainly in my patch for my
I,
driver, it will.
sorry, Eric. I think it's only for revert feature because I just tried with LVM driver and I can uh, create volume from any snapshot.
you can.
Yes.
So I just found the check for this is in the Cinder API is what blocks you from doing this. I'll put a link in a second.
Might not be working then.
But yeah, that might be a whole nother problem. It's supposed to block it anyway. I don't know how if anyone's tried to look recently to see if it succeeds at doing that.
I mean, I'm not bothered. It works for me, so I don't care. And I guess LVM doesn't care either.
So
Well, the
is it
code I was looking at doesn't actually block it, so maybe there's code somewhere else, or I don't know. Now I want to find out if we actually try to block it or not, because I was pretty sure that we had code that implemented this restriction.
Yeah, we have code in Cinder API v3 volumes. I'm looking at it. It's the revert method.
Yeah,
that certainly looks like it should be blocking requests to the API.
So so back to the
Right.
feature itself. It is definitely the case that some backends will have to implement this in a way that performs really poorly. It may be that some backends don't have a good way to do it at all. I mean, there's always, you know, you could always implement it presumably by doing a whole clone and making a new copy and all kind of stuff. Which honestly, for an end user, they would probably be happy with, but I don't know if that's something that we actually want to go down that path or not. But yeah, I mean, all of the reasons that we didn't do this before are still reasons to be concerned about it. I guess it would be really handy to know how many drivers could actually do this in a way that would perform well. And we also would need to study a little bit on just how messy and confusing it gets when you have snapshots that are no longer like ordered by when they were taken and that kind of thing for Cinder. Because even if it works, it might be horribly confusing and messy looking. But maybe it's useful enough to do it anyway. I don't know. It's all I can really say is it's not easy.
Yeah. All right. Let me I can just I wonder if the proposer is here actually. Lost the I'll find it later. Yeah, I'll communicate that we want an actual spec for this. I just wanted to see if there was a reason to say up or down immediately. So it sounds like worth investigation, but there's a bunch of questions we need to address. Okay, great. And then I just wanted to mention these because they're specs that are underway. So we've got the volume local cache that Leon Fong was working on. NFS volume encryption that Sophia is working on. I've got two blueprints in Launchpad that are sort of ripe for pickup. There's the RBD OSSN 0085. We deprecated a dangerous option and we're going to remove it. So the removal needs to happen. And then the OS reset status thing, there's a backward compatibility. Well, you can look at the blueprint for that. I think it's got links to everything. But basically, there's some backward compatibility code for Usuri, and that can be removed at this point. So that would be the kind of thing we could do before it's in there too long. Let me just...
It sounds interesting, and I don't remember what that is about.
Yeah, what had happened was the reset status notifications were going to these crazy publishers, unlike
yeah,
else.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, so Walt in the last cycle put them going to the publisher that makes the most sense, but we left a backward compatibility period where they would be published to these crazy things in case to give people time to recover. But it sounds like nobody had a problem with it, so we can remove that backward compatibility code. And then Josephine was here the other day. I'm not sure if she's here today. There's the GPG encryption stuff going into Brick. So just so everyone's aware, those are also things that we're working on. Any general comments or questions about stuff people have proposed for Cinder? Okay. All right, moving on to technical debt. So we've talked about this the last couple of cycles about SQL Alchemy Migrate being end of life, and we need to switch to Alembic. So I think we're going to need it to do it this cycle. And when I say we, I mean me. So I think I'm going to take this on as a thing to do. So anyone interested in database stuff, let me know. There will be stuff to do, and I'll try to get together a better idea of how exactly this is going to happen. But it basically can happen without affecting anything else. So I think it's anyway. That's all I got to say about that. And then the next one was the right. We've been talking about removing the V2 API for quite a while, but haven't actually done it. And it'd be good to make it disappear just because we're carrying all that stuff around. But on the other hand, I mean, my assessment is that the Alembic stuff is probably more important to get done now. So I've got the link there to when we discussed this at the PTG last time. And it looks like I haven't done my action items on that. Right. I think at this point, well, we just don't know. Yeah, so anyone who's interested in removing the V2 API, I think what's going to happen to make this happen is we're going to have to get an actual list of things that need to be done and then make them available for people to sign out for themselves. So that's something for the future because I don't have that ready right now. So anyway, that's out there as something that we can take on. And then I've got a list for other stuff. There were some actions from the Victoria PTG that are still things. Although we've addressed a couple of them. So like the glance cinder driver, somebody should do something. Sounds like Rajat is doing something about that. Quotas we've discussed a couple of times. There are some documentation things that are still out there. So supporting the filter backend based on operation type. I think people want a better documentation of just how to set up the filters, and then improving the active documentation. We haven't done that either. So mostly just and then with the user survey results, replication needs better documentation. So there's several documentation kind of things. But do we have anyone here who's like real excited about documentation?
You really need to ask that.
Yeah, I know. Well, I just thought I would because you never know. Okay. I guess I'll have to think of a way to organize the documentation effort. Get it some visibility so at least people know they can work on this stuff. Okay. That's basically it. All right, so let's move on to the cycle priorities and schedule. So I put up a patch to put the Cinder stuff into the main release schedule for Victoria. And yeah, Zool doesn't like it. I couldn't get this to build locally either. So I was hoping it was an environment problem on my end, but I don't think it is. But anyway, we can still look at the stuff. All right. So what's happened? Oh, I put the notes here. Okay. All right. So this is a shorter cycle. So one thing I wanted to, one thing, last time you may have noticed right around feature freeze happened to be like a major holiday. And depending on where you lived, you either had Thursday and Friday or Monday and Tuesday off. And so basically we had this long stretch right when we could have used a lot of reviewers where we didn't have reviewers. So I did pay attention. So with the, what am I going to say? Okay, so spec freeze is still at R minus 15. But that's happening really soon because this is so relative to when you would expect to get stuff done, it's the same amount of time, but relative to now, it's going to be coming up pretty quick. So there wasn't really much to do about that. It didn't seem to make sense to push it later. And given what we've been looking at with the specs that we just reviewed, it doesn't look like there's a lot of stuff coming in that's going to call for, big discussions with the Nova team or anything like we have with the volume cache. So I think we're okay on that anyway.
The specs that are driver specific, I've dropped them in your DM, Brian, that just need approving.
Okay, great. And then what was the other point I wanted to make? Okay, so as far as the spec freeze goes, though, it happens right around July 4th holiday in the USA, which I want to take off. So usually we have the specs have to be approved by Friday of that week. For this time, it's going to be Wednesday. So just people proposing specs, the spec freeze is going to happen a little bit earlier in spec freeze week than it has in the past, just so you're aware. Now, the other thing I did was I added this thing called I'm open to better suggestions, the Cinder driver features declaration. So what happened last time was we had, remember we split the virtual mid-cycle into two parts, and we had one right around the time of the new features status checkpoint to see how new features were coming along and what was going on there. But I didn't use that I didn't have a good grip on the new driver features because they're subject to the feature freeze. So to make sure they don't get missed this time, I just added this extra thing, which is just basically what we wound up doing last time was making blueprints in Launchpad where, the drivers who had features they wanted to get in could list the patches and then we could all focus on them and get them through. But it didn't happen till later, which was bad. So I want to make that more of a formal kind of thing. Mainly, the main thing it will affect is just get visibility to these patches so that we can make sure they get reviewed soon enough and so that we can give feedback for things that look like they're just not even ready. Because that happened last time too. So that's that. And then the one thing for both the, right around the time of M3 is a holiday in the USA. And sometimes people like to take an extra day off around that time. So I just want to surface to people that we're going to be in the same situation we were last time. We're right just before feature freeze. We're going to be low on reviewers. So that's just, that's the way things go. But if you can plan ahead, then it's more likely stuff will actually get through. So just as an awareness issue. So anyway, feel free to review this. If you have questions or the dates look weird, like I said, I pretty much kept things the same from Usuri as far as like amount of time between things. So I think that's good. Any questions? And then for people doing the drivers with this Cinder driver features declaration thing, right? If that sounds crazy or confusing, just let me know and I can explain it. But I think it'll help us organize this better so we can get because it was, I don't know if you remember, but it seemed kind of crazy to me right at the end. There was suddenly this cavalcade of reviews that we had to do to try to get stuff done for drivers. Any questions or comments? Yes, that's basically it then. I'll write up a summary of what's gone on that we can have on the wiki so people can update it, you know, for corrections and if I missed things. Otherwise, I just want to open it up. Any general comments or observations about the PTG or any other topics that we've kind of missed that we should address before everybody goes? Nando had a question. Oh, so the driver features deadline is the same as the feature freeze. So M3, the milestone 3. So the only thing I want to formalize just a little bit so that we know which reviews are for feature things, because by policy, those are supposed to merge by milestone 3. So that's it. So. Okay. I guess while we're yeah, so right. So actually, so this deadline is really so Fernando's question is this the deadline for creating new blueprints for drivers? And so yeah, basically what I'd like to see at this point is post a blueprint for driver features for Victoria and have the list of reviews, patches, right, that address those features. So that's basically the idea. Okay. One thing I don't have on the schedule, but that I should ask is, I think the virtual mid-cycles have been useful. Would we want to do that again in the Victoria cycle?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and I think the way we did it last time with instead of waiting for the middle, we did one early and one a little bit later. I think that worked pretty well. So, all right. I think we should plan. So anyway, so plan for that. I guess you can't really plan if we don't have dates yet, but anyway, we'll be doing that. I'm trying to, we just did 1 day, 2 hours, or was it 2 days? Well, I'll look to see exactly what we did because I don't even remember. And we'll do a similar kind of thing. During that happy hour yesterday, idea came up of maybe having one of our meetings, one of the Cinder meetings each month be on video instead of IRC. So I'm open to feedback about that. I could take a poll if people are interested, or if you think it's a good idea, you can tell me now. Or if you think it's a really bad idea, you could tell me now.
I think a video.
I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. Now I'm thinking if we did that, I've got to say, well, so I think Blue Jeans is really good for recording. I'll have to take a look at the Glance recordings. So Abhishek did hold the Glance sessions in MeetPad and recorded them using some kind of browser plugin or something. I sort of looked into that with Jay. We tested out trying to do it in MeetPad, and it didn't quite seem to work that well. So I'll investigate that. The thing I liked about MeetPad was just you see more people at once than you do in this interface. But the nice thing about this interface is you've got the screen share, and the user has the option to size things as they're watching the video, which is kind of nice. So I guess we'll be open for feedback about what to use. All right, so we think, all right.
One downside of MidPad is that it doesn't work Firefox.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a pretty big downside. Yeah. All right, so we do know that this works, so I guess we'll stick with this. Well, it'll be an experiment for the first time or two we do it. We'll just see how it goes and whether it makes sense to continue. But it seems there's enough interest in doing it that we should like try it out. Is the sense I'm getting. Okay. So I'll look at this, look at the Victoria meeting schedule and see. So in 3 weeks or so, we'll give it a shot and see how it works for our weekly meeting. I'm willing to do that. Okay.
I like the idea too.
You do? Okay, thanks. Oh, and I meant to thank Sophia for being our DJ at the happy hour yesterday.
So cool.
Added much festivities to the event. Okay. Any last comments, observations, or? Okay. Well, I think it's been a productive PTG. We got a lot of stuff discussed. And it, would have been nice to see each of you in person. So that's kind of a bummer, but what can you do? So thanks for attending. Right, if you think of things, feel free to add comments to the Etherpad or write our regular Cinder meetings, and there's always the mailing list if topics come up. So look forward to seeing you there. Yeah, so anyway, thanks for attending. It's been fun, and enjoy your weekend. And I will stop recording now.